Okay, everyone. I think that we have the initial bulk number that we can start. First of all, thanks to all the people who decided to join us with this business webinar. We did, I would say, a lot of broadcasting over the media. So today's topic is, to nobody's surprise, is business acceleration with SAP S/4HANA. And today we will focus specifically on the manufacturing industry. So today, here with me are our guests from SAP, Dimitri, Andre from Microsoft, and Bogdan from, let's say, one of our trusted partners, Ariete. So we decided to organize this event together, all of us, in order to give you a bit of a, how to say, intro and info from the kitchen, actually, of how S/4HANA and in general digitalization is helping manufacturers accelerate their business to, let's say, get out as winners from the COVID-19 world impact. So in terms of the position, so apologies for that, Dimitri is Senior Consultant at SAP, Bogdan is Logistics Manager of Ariete Logistics, and Andre is one of the cloud architects at Microsoft. Today's agenda, I'll briefly do some intro. After that, I'll be speaking about the main challenges and opportunities for the manufacturers. And of course, who are the big winners. I'll speak briefly about S/4HANA as a business strategy. After that, I'll give the word to Dimitri Kokarev, and he will tell you a bit more what is it exactly S/4HANA is, how in terms of functionality is benefiting manufacturers. After that, Bogdan from Ariete will tell a really interesting success story of how they managed to implement S/4HANA in 3 plants in Bulgaria. After that, we'll continue with Andre, and he will actually share insights on how can Microsoft Azure really accelerate the adoption of S/4HANA and in general of digitalization. And last off, we'll finish with just a few points with do's and don'ts for business digitalization. So with no further ado, we're ready to start. Just some minor comment. This session will be recorded. So after that, all participants and people who did not manage to join for one reason or not will receive a recording of this session. In terms of questions, on the lower ribbon, there's a Q&A session. So please use that. We'll answer all the questions after the panel. And for those questions that we do not have time to answer, we'll send, let's say, the answers via email after the event. So ready to start. I'll give a short intro of, let's say, who we are in terms of Scalefocus. We actually are the biggest software consultancy Bulgarian-based company. Over 750 people, 32 million revenue in 2020. We have 6 delivery locations, in 5 of which in Bulgaria and 1 in Macedonia. And the rest I'll actually not bother to read through. You can just read it through yourself and see it after that during the presentation. In terms of where we operate, even though we are a Bulgarian company, we are predominantly export oriented, which means that 90% of our business comes from abroad, mainly from the UK and Ireland, DACH, and of course, North America, which is one of the biggest IT markets in the world. We are partnering with a number of household names, such as Bosch, such as Grosvenor, Vodafone. And I must say that throughout the years, we have accumulated a lot of industry expertise, which we've put and, of course, enforced in all the projects that we successfully deliver. In terms of the industry where we're actually operating, these are the 8 main industries. So this is logistics, insurance, finance and banking, energy utilities, telecom and media, healthcare and life science, e-commerce, and last but not least, and the subject of this discussion is manufacturing, of course. I'll finish the intro with, because today we're going to speak about SAP in general, so this will be the topic. Who are we as an SAP partner? This is actually a milestone that I've missed, that the company is actually celebrated yesterday its 9th birthday. So out of these 9 years, 6 of which we've been part of the SAP ecosystem as a SAP partner. At the moment, we are in the region one of the few gold partners. And to just finish it up, we've had more than 20 successfully delivered projects throughout these 6 years. So forward to the main topic is the actual business acceleration with S/4HANA. So basically, what is COVID-19? So some say that it's a black swan event, some say that it's something else, but we can all agree on one thing, that it had a major impact on our lives, on our work, and on various industries. And manufacturing does not make the exception. So based on the survey on the National Association of Manufacturers, more than 78% of manufacturers, they reported they have a negative financial impact to some sort. More than 50% reported a change in operations because they had to adapt, and more than 35% reported supply chain disruptions. And at the moment, I think with the global shortage of raw materials, specifically in some industries such as automotive and other, this is, I think, even more the case. Another thing that I would actually illustrate, because technically, even though COVID is, has nothing to do with the financial crisis in 2008, we can find, I say, a lot of similarities, specifically on the manufacturing. Here on the graph, which is from Eurostat, you can see that even though this event takes a year, the recovery takes at least, I would say, 2, 3, or 4 years after that. And different segments of the manufacturing industries are hit in a different way. So with some, it hits hard later, such as, I would say, machine tools, for instance, textile and machinery. It has an immediate impact, and later on the recovery is slightly speeder than compared to other industries. But you can use this graph to actually get a real grasp of what is the impact of such an event, such a black swan event such as COVID, on every manufacturer. So even Bogdan here can share later, let's say, part of not only the success story, but what is the impact also on the COVID-19, even though at the moment we are exiting, hopefully, with the vaccine and everything, but it's still, it's felt everywhere around the world. So what are the main challenges for the manufacturers during the pandemic? So first and most, it's the people. Most business, I would say 99% of the businesses, they rely on people. So even if it's a product, if it's a plant, even if it's a service, especially if it's a service, it relies on people. So first of all, the well-being, of the workforce and their productivity is a major issue. Secondly, disrupted supply chains, borders are closed, lockdowns. It's very difficult to forecast, the supply and demand, because this is a situation that none of us has been so far. Second of all, pricing pressure, because everybody is buying just the necessary. So in the end, all the supply chain effectively is pressured, for optimization of pricing, and a lot of companies and business will go out of business purely because of that, because they're operating on a limited margin, and even a slight decrease in terms of prices might be the difference between going over and going under. Second of all is the limited business visibility. So because this is, as I said, something that's new, nobody knows what to expect. So you have very limited, instead of planning for 1 year, you plan 1 month ahead, or maybe 2 months ahead, no more. You have a change in customer behaviors, both in B2B and B2C. So customers are very sensitive to what are they spending on, their money, be that cars, apartments. So this is, a very big shift. The other thing is that now this COVID situation, and let's say even in general, we're going to see it even for the years to come, the market requires fast transformation. So today we're operating like this. Tomorrow you might need to change partially or completely your model in order to survive. And last but not least is the liquidity problem, because this is self-explanatory. If you have delayed payments, or suppliers are going under, this definitely affects the liquidity. The next I'll move. So we have is something like a SWOT analysis. You have the main challenges and what are the main opportunities. So a lot of businesses are using this time to optimize the business, to redesign even some processes, to improve productivity, to introduce tools and software or machinery to, let's say, to automate some process, to increase the efficiency, also by optimizing the cost. New business models. So recently there was a manufacturer who started producing hand sanitizer, and they're producing, let's say, pillows and mattresses. So this is, it gives a huge opportunity for some manufacturers to actually diversify. Supplier diversification. So a lot of the suppliers that you relied so far, they might not be able to go, let's say, to be able to supply on time because of the fluctuation in the demand. And last but not least is the opportunity to have all this, I would say, automation and digitalization and software in order to improve business planning capabilities as much as possible. So here, the main question is, who are the big winners, after such event? And there is no, I would say, right or wrong answer. Some companies will benefit a lot, most might not, but it's not the biggest companies that will go over successfully, this crisis. But even though it might sound a cliche, I wanted to use a quote from Charles Darwin, which is, in terms of adaptation. So the big winners will be the companies who are able to adapt to the current reality, to the current market conditions, who are able to innovate in terms of business models, in terms of productivity and efficiency. And this is, I'm not saying that, S/4HANA or any other software will solve this problem, but no, this will give you the platform to, I'll say, to enforce and to implement such changes, especially in terms of adaptation. And this brings me to the next slide in terms of what is SAP S/4HANA and how can you use it as a business strategy. So everybody knows what an ERP is. You have ERPs from Microsoft, from Oracle, from SAP, from local vendors. Most companies nowadays, it's very difficult for them to operate in Excel. And if they're operating now in Excel, in the next year, if they don't do anything or they don't innovate and don't implement something to manage their business, but as a whole, not parts of their business in different systems, they'll have issues with the business planning. So based on the report on Pricewaterhouse from last year, 86% of all CEOs, I think it was over 1,000 companies interviewed, say that technology advances will transform their business over the next 5 years. So this is a survey that's done during the COVID pandemic. And 98 of the surveyed organization who already have SAP S/4HANA as a platform for their business planning and business operations say that they're satisfied with the impacts that S/4HANA is having on their business transformation and in terms of their organization. And last but not least, I'll finish with the, let's say, how can S/4HANA support the business-driven transformation? So first of all, I would like to say that if you look at the even Gartner reports, or there are a lot of other organizations who do such reports, but SAP in terms of S/4HANA is the preferred, I would say, business planning software for manufacturers worldwide. I think the total market share is, I think maybe out of all, it's maybe close to 25% worldwide. It's a framework for organizational change and optimization. So it comes with a lot of best practices. It will able to help structure a business around it. And instead of, I would say, we have a saying in Bulgarian to invent to find the hot water. It's able to empower your employees, which means that they'll be able to be much more self-sufficient, I would say. You'll be able to have a total overview, top-down through the organization, and to have full transparency and control over different business units and how they interact. you'll be able to ensure business knowledge, because a lot of business at the moment, even with us, and I'm not afraid to say it, you have a lot of key stakeholders who have worked for companies for 5, 10, 15 years, and they hold key knowledge. And if this knowledge, you don't have a platform to share it, so which is usually you mean by enforcing processes, as soon as this person leaves, this knowledge is lost. And these people are very hard to replace. I'm not saying to replace them, but you need to have a contingency plan in terms of knowledge sharing and business continuity. Another, let's say, thing is to onboard your suppliers with your plan. You have a lot of tools, and this can happen through SAP in general. You'll be able to, I would say, have more agility to be able to reimagine new business models. So every change, if it's, I would say, if it's not enforced in the proper way to process and through systems, it's very difficult to bring it to the end, and a lot of the organizations fail purely because of that. And with this, I would actually want to give the word to Dimitri Kokarek from SAP, who will explain exactly what is S/4HANA, a bit more from the technical side, but with a very strong business flavor. And what areas do S/4HANA cover, and how can manufacturers actually benefit from it? So Dimitri, you have the word now.
Perfect, awesome. Thank you, Pavlin. Let me reshare my screen and show my presentation. Oh, yeah. Can you see the slides? Awesome, perfect. Thank you once again. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Dmitry, and let me introduce a bit myself. I'm responsible for manufacturing services in SAP CIS region. And today, I'm going to lead you through a couple of interesting topics. And the first one is about the conception of intelligent enterprise and a new digital core represented by SAP S/4HANA. And then I'm going to narrow down a little bit into the manufacturing line of business and emphasize the main functions in this line of business. Yeah, let's get it started. So we have a large global customer base with more than 425,000 customers. It's easy to see how more than 3/4 of the world's transactions revenue flows through the SAP systems. Our customers produce most of the world's food and most of the medical devices. More importantly here, that we have got 45 plus years of deep expertise that allows us to understand the business context of data. SAP S/4HANA is the first intelligent ERP that enables companies to capture every opportunity in today's digital world, wherever your company size, business complexity, industry need, line of businesses, or preferred IT consumption model. SAP S/4HANA is an ERP of the 21st century. It means that we moved from traditional ERP in a lot of aspects. Yeah, for example, from primarily transactions to transactions enforced by planning, analysis, simulation, and prediction capabilities. We moved from basic business automation to intelligent business automation, and from latency for limited information to immediate business insights at any level. As I said, SAP S/4HANA is designed for the business 21st century with IT technologies of the 21st century. And here we also made a huge step. So for example, we moved from traditional relational database, physical database to HANA in-memory database. So now we can operate not only the basic workflow, but also embedded artificial intelligence workflow powered by machine learning. And also we moved from transactional data only to data on any level with embedded analytics. So let's get down a little bit to the manufacturing area. S/4HANA in manufacturing area is represented by a solution which is called Manufacturing for Planning and Scheduling. Yeah, this is a solution for planning production resources and considering finite capacity and material availability constraints. The key values of the Manufacturing for Planning and Scheduling are reduction days of inventory, reduction of manufacturing total cycle time, and reduction of the revenue loss due to stockouts. And of course, as a result of implementation, you got a stage-by-stage planned and actual costing per every product you want, or any work center, or any operation. So SAP manufacturing is represented by 5 different major pillars, and every single pillar consists itself from the different functions. Yeah, and the key functions are depicted on the screen, and I'm gonna lead you through every single one of them a little bit in detail in order to explain the task that solved by this function. All right, so the journey starts with the master data maintenance. There are 2 major pillars in manufacturing. On the one hand, we have bill of material, and on the other hand, we have routings or recipes. It really depends on the process or district manufacturing we have. Bill of material is a list of components with consumption rate on every production stage. In your company, S/4HANA provides you with a cost-effective production BOMs management with comprehensive manufacturing functionality. And also, it allows to synchronize master data and product structures continuously. On the other hand, we have recipe and routing management. System enables production planning by specifying details about work centers where operations are carried out and listing required production resources and tools. This is where recipe and routing comes into the play. So right after we set up our manufacturing master data, we can go to the core, to the heart of the functionality, which is called MRP, or Material Requirements Planning. Based on customer requirements or demand, this functionality creates and schedule orders for requirement date. System analyzes the material flow and all materials in real time using BOM explosion and creates, on the one hand, a production order for in-house producing materials and purchase order for externally procurement materials. Moreover, which is more important, it identifies disruptions in material flow and the impact of this issue and propose solution for every single situation. On the next slide, I would like to highlight that S/4HANA allows you to do this operation with a brilliant performance. Depend on scenario and its complexity. It provides this functionality up to 10 times faster than the same algorithm in traditional ERP. The next important step right after the MRP is constraint-based production planning. This function allows to increase production through output and reduce production costs, leveraging finite capacity planning embedded in S/4HANA. One MRP run plans everything. Create finite production plans according to the available capacity situation. And the second one, on the other hand, schedule available resources and generate production plans to the precision of the seconds. And the next slide is depicted in a quite clear way how it works in case if we have a similar production order with the similar operation. Let's compare the lead time in the first case, a before combination, and with the total lead time of two orders in the lower part of the picture after combination. So the next major step right after we make a feasible production plan is production execution. The key idea of production execution is to release and monitor production and process efficiently in efficient way. It allows us to confirm production progress and seamlessly trigger production finalization tasks, like component consumption on the other hand and good receipts on the other hand, and also document our production process and log production information. Production execution is tightly connected with the production control, and production control is intended to coordinate manufacturing with other line of businesses like engineering, sales, purchasing, and production. It allows you to better manage raw material procurement, production operations, stock transfers, and deliveries to our customers. Quality inspection is one of the most important functions inside the production, and this functionality is used to prepare, perform, and monitor different types of quality inspections, for example, for incoming materials in purchasing and in producing materials during the production. This functionality is also represented by quality improvement processes, which provides you with tools that are basis for improving your processes and products, so you can gain the better insights into your quality related data and reach your corporate quality goals. So last but one is manufacturing engineering. This is the extended functionality. This functionality is intended for comprehensive manufacturing process planning and change management of mentioned master data, like bill of materials or routing that I mentioned a little bit above. In addition, engineers can analyze the impact of changes of the production orders on the shop floor and thus orchestrate the change management for optimal production execution. So in simple words, manufacturing engineering is intended to bridge the gap between engineers and manufacturers on the plant. On top of the mentioned processes, located manufacturing analytics. It is represented by real-time alerts based on production bottlenecks, such as time or component delays, to reduce shortfalls. Close loop between global enterprise strategy and execution at local plants using manufacturing analytics. And in the end of my presentation, I would like to highlight that we have thousands of customers who leveraged their business with SAP S/4HANA, and this is just a couple of big examples of them. So once again, thank you for having me, and over to you, Pauline. Please unmute.
Apologies for being unmuted.
Perfect.
That's the most commonly used sentence during you're on mute during conference call. Thank you very much, Dimitri, for the insights for S/4HANA. Next, we'll move on to Bogdan Kavasanov from Ariete, who will share, let's say, his experience with S/4HANA, with their 3 projects so far. So how did they start? So what are their major pain points that we're trying to address, and how the whole thing developed in the last 3 years? So Bogi, I give the word to you.
Hello, dears. It's a pleasure for me to participate in your webinar. Probably this will be webinars and the meetings. I will briefly present our journey with Scalefocus and SAP S/4HANA, because we are the real example, how it works, what are the obstacles, what are the benefits. We as Ariete, we're part of international Ariete group. Mainly, we are providing complex logistics services, and this is our mission. We have started our business in Czech Republic before 25 years, and since 2013 we are operating on Bulgarian market. Our challenging mission is to provide complex logistics services for any kind of businesses, but now we are mainly focused on the automotive industry. We as a company, we are the exclusive logistics provider for Coastal Bulgaria Automotive. This is a German company with more than 100 years of experience. Currently, we are operating in 3 locations: Smolен, Haskovo, and Pazardzhik, and very fast, for less than 8 years, we have succeeded to increase our production areas up to 9,000 square meters and the storage facilities up to 15,000 square meters. If somebody was able to predict our future, I will laugh on him, because now we have 950 employees only in Bulgaria, while we have in Europe around 5,000 employees. Our gross revenue for 2020, even in this pretty turbulent time, is 35 million euros. And we are still expanding the Bulgarian market.
Bogi, I'll just add, since you mentioned that logistics, so logistics is one of the, or maybe one of the main business lines, but you also had very solid manufacturing operations.
Yes, I will
wanted to add this.
That challenging opportunity which we received in 2018, because since 2013 till 2018, we were mainly focused on the logistics services, but our partner Coastal has expanded our portfolio. In 2017, we have started our plant in Haskovo, in a pretty challenging time and with pretty challenging tasks. If I say that SAP S/4HANA was our first and natural choice, I will be lying. We were driven by the prejudice that SAP is a cumbersome and conservative system. Probably you know it very well, because during the initial meetings we were very, how can I say, we were hesitating about this solution. But when we went through the research of other ERP solutions, SAP was our final solution, because every single business is unique, but we had the following problems: that almost zero traceability of the handling units, something which is quite important, if not the most important in the automotive industry. Total inability to consolidate and manage the supply chain. We had a lot of suppliers, a lot of customers, which killing us in a pretty short period of time. No ability to follow FIFO and FEFO, something which is absolutely a must in the automotive industry. And having no experience in production area, you're absolutely not able to manage the inventories if you don't have a reliable ERP system, something which we have with S/4HANA. And last but not least, the necessity of EDI integration. It's pretty complicated to find a ERP system which is EDI friendly. SAP, and especially S/4HANA, is such a solution, and now we don't have any obstacles to gather our suppliers and our customers via this EDI integration. Of course,
I can just add to what you said, Bogi. Sorry to interrupt you. That I can still remember, like was yesterday. So you were in Smolen, and I had a meeting with you and Michal, the CEO of Ariete. And in the end, you told me that you would go with another partial solution. And then I still remember that I told you and Michal that I have the feeling that we will speak another time, like within a year. And let's say within a year, we reopened the topic, and then we really went full-blown SAP.
I can confirm it, and our journey with you started in 2018. It was not the proper start, but it was the proper end. For all the participants, probably because we didn't go for a business or blueprint for our project, we have decided to implement the best practices, and the implementation took less than 6 months in our first project in Haskovo, which is a pretty short period of time to implement such a ERP system. But very easily you can onboard another entities in your SAP, led by the idea of expanding our portfolio after a successful start in Haskovo with assembling electronic components for the automotive industry. In 2019, we dived in one field of injection molding shop, something which is absolutely new for us, and for less than 2 years we have succeeded to finish our second SAP implementation in Smolen, and then 8 months later, once again in 2020, we have succeeded to finish the third implementation here in Pazarchik. I can say that as a project manager of all these 3 implementations, it was pretty tough business, but if you have reliable partners as a Scalefocus and well-prepared employees from our side, it's not so complicated. Pavlin shared some of his thoughts about the COVID impact. For sure, the automotive industry was one of the fields where the impact of COVID-19 was pretty huge, and the sobriety came unexpectedly in 2020. We have some plans to extend our storing and production capacity. Somehow this idea was slowed down, but now in 2021 we are once again on the track. In such a turbulent time, you have really 2 options: to give up or to face the challenges. Even in these pretty turbulent and pretty complicated times, we have succeeded to extend our customers' portfolio, something which is exactly the opposite of Pavlin's presentation, to optimize the supply chain. Now I can say that in the automotive industry, the main problem is that there is a lack of components and raw materials on the market. And even if you have a machine capacity, if you have human resources, you're facing a lot of issues with feeding your production. Probably there are some other participants in this presentation which are facing the same issues. And for me, the most important thing is that we succeeded to keep our core team, something which will lead us to another success, because literally yesterday we have decided that we will build another 3,000 square meters for production and logistics services. If you have some questions about the way how we succeeded for less than 3 years to have 3 implementations, I will be glad to answer your questions after the presentations. That's from my side. Many thanks. And I'm giving the word to Pavlin and Andrei.
Yeah, first of all, Bogi, I want to thank you as a representative of Ariete, for the trust, because let's say in 2018, we did not have so many projects, behind our back. So, the whole journey was I think for me myself and for the colleagues from our SAP team, it was a really pleasure working together. And I think, this beneficial collaboration and partnership, I hope to continue, for the years to come. Like, that you can rely on us, and hopefully there'll be more projects, not only with SAP, but hopefully primarily in the SAP area.
You know that, our style, 3 months before the next implementation, we will contact you and we will start once again this journey.
Yeah, and just one last thing before I give the word to Andre. I still remember it was, I think, 2019, where Michal, the CEO, called me. I think it was August. I was just about to go to the beach, and says, "Hey, Pavlin, we're about to buy a new business, and I need to have SAP in 4 months in the new business." I was like, "In 4 months?" And now it's August. And he says, yeah, in 4 months. And I was like, well, that will be quite difficult. But in the end, we managed to do it. So, which not only because, as our consultants and our employees made a huge impact and played a huge role, but this would not have been possible also by you, as a key stakeholder in Ariete, in order to really facilitate this project top down through all the employees of Ariete. And now I think that, when we look back, we can, let's just congratulate ourselves for a successful delivery of all the 3 projects.
Many thanks for this words, Pavlin.
Yeah, thank you, Bogdan. Okay, and since we're moving very ahead of time, which is quite unusual for any webinar, I would like to give the word to Andre from Microsoft. And Microsoft were so good to co-fund this event, so I just wanted to mention that. And Andre will actually share so one of the possibilities, and I think one of the best possibilities, how to run S/4HANA, and that is on SAP on Azure. And he will share a bit more info on how you can accelerate adoption through Azure, and about the global partnership between SAP and Microsoft. So, Andre, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. And it was really good to listen to those stories that we just heard from Bogdan and from yourself. And you can see it's a lot more actually about the people than it is about the technology. It's about the people working together as cross-functional teams and actually making a project successful. So it was really cool to listen to. So over to my part. First, I'm just going to make sure whether you can see my screen, which I hope you can. And just a really quick more intro of me. Great. So I'm Andre Silicek. I'm a cloud solutions architect. And prior to starting my role at Microsoft, I was actually out in Sydney in Australia, which you can actually still see behind me. I've still got Sydney as a memory there. I was there for 6 years, and I worked primarily on digital transformation projects. And what was really exciting about these projects was that Azure actually played a really central role in all of these projects. And I could actually see firsthand how it actually helped accelerate a lot of the innovation in these companies and drive the digital transformation. So today I'm going to take that lens and kind of project it into the sort of SAP S/4HANA sort of world and view, and try and show to you how Azure can actually help accelerate that sort of implementation as well. So let's dive in. So when we think about SAP landscapes on Microsoft Azure, we sort of break it down into 4 different pillars. The first one is the cloud platform itself, the infrastructure. The second is how to sort of enrich that infrastructure with additional value. So for example, security or compliance. The third one is immediate insights and innovations. How to actually extend it even further, right? How to sort of maybe add data services or other innovative services that we have in Azure to extend that value of the SAP landscape. And the fourth one is our unique partnership with SAP, which allows us to collaborate together and actually accelerate that process of S/4HANA adoption. So let's go through each one of these in a bit more detail. Let's dive into that first one, which is the infrastructure sort of component, the cloud platform. So when we look at Azure as a whole, we can see that it's truly global now. It's something that's been increasing rapidly. If you had seen this slide 5 or 6 years ago, there would have been 5 or 6 dots on the map, right? So you can see the adoption is growing really rapidly, that the customers are seeing the value of the cloud. And I saw this again firsthand in Australia, where cloud adoption is now everyone's thinking cloud native, not about how to adopt the cloud, but really how cloud native is the way to go, and how to basically develop everything in the cloud. Now you can see this is happening in the CE region as well. We've announced the Polish data center as well as the Greek data center as new data centers within the region. So you can see this cloud adoption is growing within our region as well. Now, what does this mean for SAP when we talk about Azure infrastructure for SAP workloads? So the first thing we have is scalability. So you can see we have machines which range from tiny 8 GB machines all the way to virtualized 12 TB virtual VMs, which we call Godzillas. And you can go even beyond that to HANA large instances, which are bare metal machines within the actual data center. Now, why is this important? It's important that all of these are certified and you can scale very easily between them. It's just a matter of turning on and off the machine. So when you think about, for example, the last year where we had COVID, we had some customers which had basically run into the turbulent times that Bogdan described. And they try to look for ways to optimize their costs. And the customers that were actually running one of their SAP landscapes on Azure were able to do several things. They were able to first downscale some of their VMs, right? They were able to actually scale down. And through that method actually save some costs. And some other customers just basically completely turned off their dev and test environments because they basically decided to not run any projects and sort of minimize their costs. Now, had they invested into this on-premise, it would have been impossible to recoup those costs. But because they're running in this sort of scalable, dynamic infrastructure in Azure, they're able to sort of go with the flow. Conversely, hopefully, when the business picks up again and the business starts growing, they can easily scale up those machines as their business ramps up. So we see this also a lot with S/4HANA greenfield implementations, where they begin with 192 GB of RAM. They don't need to purchase bigger machines than that at the beginning. They can just start with that, and as over time they scale up, they can just simply scale up to 256, 512, and 1 TB as their business and data grows as well. So they're quite an important differentiator when it comes to the infrastructure in Azure. The second, I guess, most important, or actually for some customers, even the most important, is high availability. So in Azure, even single virtual machines have 3 nines of SLA. So we actually have some customers which are running production SAP workloads on just a single VM because they find that the 3 nines of SLA is actually sufficient for their needs, right? They are willing to take that little bit of risk, which is only about a few hours per year of downtime, and run in this sort of cost-efficient manner. We have also other customers which are on the other side of the spectrum, right? They're more interested in absolutely minimizing downtime to the absolute minimum, right? For them, even an hour of downtime can cost, $10,000, or it can mean even, bigger costs in terms of, lost revenue. So for those types of customers, we have 2 different sort of setups. We have the availability sets and the availability zones. The availability sets basically create a cluster between different racks within the data center. So that means if one whole rack goes down, the other VMs running on a different rack, and through that method, we can guarantee actually 3 nines and a half of SLA. Now, if that's not enough, we actually have a lot of customers really opting out for the availability zones, which means basically the cluster is split up between actually different data centers within the same region, right? And through this method, we can guarantee up to 4 nines of SLA. So this is a huge differentiator for us. Even our competitors such as AWS and Google do not offer this currently, and a lot of on-premise data centers would struggle to sort of give this sort of a guarantee. In fact, I think it would be pretty much impossible. So a huge differentiator when it comes to infrastructure that we provide when we're talking about SAP landscapes on Azure. Okay. So, when I don't know if you guys saw Ignite, where Satya Nadella spoke about, what's sort of changing over the next few years. He basically spoke about ubiquitous computing, which is basically saying that infrastructure now is commoditized, right? So you got to think about how to add more value to that infrastructure. And what we strive to do at Azure is to provide, monitoring tools out of the box to make the management of that infrastructure a lot easier. But more importantly, we provide automation. So you can use Terraform scripts, Ansible scripts, ARM templates, and Bicep language scripts to completely automate the deployment of your infrastructure. So you can create a, I don't know, for example, an SAP sandbox in literally 1 or 2 hours, right? That's up and running. And this is where that acceleration comes in. When we talk about accelerating, S/4HANA deployments, we have a lot of customers who just want to try it out first, right? So what we do is we allow them to basically try it out for 90 days, and we can deploy that within 2 hours, right? If a customer decides they want to try S/4HANA, we can actually do that. And it's primarily thanks to this automation of the infrastructure using infrastructure as code. The third one here we have is high availability. So setting up high availability, we talked about high availability before, but what disaster recovery is really easy to set up in Azure. It's basically a few clicks to set up backups and site recovery in Azure. And again, this reduces costs when you would have to do it manually otherwise. Finally, we have a lot of tools to help drive governance, right? So we have Azure Blueprints and Azure Policy. So if you're concerned about having, better governance over your SAP landscape, so for example, only restricted to particular types of users and ensuring that maybe when admin access is utilized, that multi-factor authentication is in place, we have the tools in Azure to actually really help drive that and drive that automatically, right? So we can set up policies, for example, for a production landscape to always enforce multi-factor authentication. So it's things like that, these sort of tools that sort of enrich the infrastructure landscape and help manage that infrastructure better and add that value. Finally, we wouldn't be complete without thinking about how to optimize the costs, and Azure really helps do that. So you heard me talking about the sort of optimizing the landscape at the beginning during a downturn. So this is really thanks to changing from a CapEx model to an OpEx model. So instead of thinking about investing 3 million euros for the SAP hardware upfront, you're thinking about an ongoing cost, right, which you can scale with your business and with also your developments. So you can also do right sizing, meaning that you size the virtual machines exactly for the workload, right? So you optimize the utilization of that virtual machine. So you basically want it running at 80%. And if you see a virtual machine that's running at 20%, you can very easily downsize it. You can use that scalability I mentioned at the beginning. And finally, snoozing is a very key factor in sort of reducing costs as well. So like I mentioned, you can kind of take your dev and test environments, and if you know you're not going to be doing any projects, you can only spin them up maybe for some emergency maintenance sort of testing and development, and you can shut them down and save those costs during downturns like during COVID. Finally, I'll probably talk about, I mentioned the automation already. By being able to leverage the automation, you're able to deploy much faster and again, reduce those TCOs. It's thanks to automation that you're able to do, S/4HANA projects now in as little as 6 months. Finally, backup and archiving, the costs in Azure and in the cloud in general, cost optimization. They're looking to archive a lot of the SAP data somewhere in Azure. So again, through using all of these methods together, we've seen our customers be able to get their ROI back in less than 12 months. So that was the first pillar, talking primarily about infrastructure. Again, like I said, infrastructure is getting very commoditized, and we need to think about how to add more value, right? So we're thinking a lot about, security and compliance and how to add that to the mix. So let's see how that looks a little bit deeper. So we're at Microsoft, when we think about security, we take it very seriously. We have a lot of enterprise customers. We've always had a lot of enterprise customers, and their trust in us is paramount, and we definitely don't want to lose it. So we actually invest $1 billion annually in cybersecurity. We monitor 6.5 trillion signals daily. We have a full kind of center of security professionals, 3,500 in fact, that continuously sort of look out for the security of our customers and have teams that when something does happen, we're able to react very quickly. You saw something that, for example, happened with Exchange. Yes, those things do happen, but you can also see how quickly we react and support our customers in helping to remediate those sort of issues. So when you think about SAP in that sort of context, that your workload is safe, or that there's definitely a lot more security in place than you probably have in your traditional data center down the road. Finally, we enrich the SAP landscape in Azure with a lot of the different security services that we have. So for example, we have identity and access management with Azure Active Directory. We have encryption, we have Key Vault, we have ways to secure the network layer as well. So if you're either using VPNs, VNets, network security groups, Azure firewalls, DDoS protection. Again, we have a lot of different tools. Most importantly, that we have Azure Security Center, which is constantly actually monitoring the landscape and saying, look, there's maybe a port here that shouldn't be open or a port that you can close, trying to help you increase your security or improve your security stance. Azure Sentinel has become also a very popular product of ours that a lot of people are taking notice of. We're coming up with, which is signal and threat sort of management. And we actually have SAP specific plugins coming out there in private preview at the moment that are going to be coming out for that particular piece. So you can see how we're enriching the infrastructure with these sort of security concepts. When it comes to compliance, again, Microsoft takes a very important stance on this. You can see we have a lot of different certifications and meet a lot of different regulatory requirements for all the different, even local areas, right? And also industry-specific requirements. We have a lot of success stories, for example, with the pharmaceutical industry, which is very heavily regulated because we actually meet and our infrastructure meets, GXP and FDA requirements. So again, something that for customers for which compliance is a really important piece, they can rest assured that Azure is a place where that is taken at almost a guarantee. So that was the second pillar. The third pillar is basically my favorite pillar, right? It thinks a little bit more about the innovation, about the future, about the digital transformation. So when we think about our customers who have moved, either migrated from on-premise or went greenfield with their S/4HANA deployments in Azure, and they start leveraging the high availability, the performance that I mentioned, the security and the compliance, they start looking again how to add more value to that, right? How to get more value of having their landscape and running their landscape in Azure. And what they start doing is they start leveraging the other services that Azure provides, the non-infrastructure services, the platform services. So they start, for example, using Azure Data Factory to pull data out of SAP and out of other systems, out of, for example, IoT devices as well, and telemetry, and bring it all into one place in an Azure Data Lake. And they use, Azure Synapse or Azure Analytics to sort of analyze that data and try and come up with new insights, right? And then they take those insights and maybe modify something in SAP, right? So they work with those together to sort of drive innovation and to kind of continuously improve, to either improve customer experience or to drive operational efficiency. So when we think about Azure as a whole, you can see the Azure infrastructure is actually a really small amount, right? It's just the bit at the bottom. It's the compute, the storage, and the networking. But like I said, Azure is a lot more than that. It's actually a huge toolbox of services that you can use, and they're all basically for free until you start using them. And the cost, again, scales in the same OpEx manner, right? So when you're trying to experiment with data services, you can actually try things out with minimal cost. And this is exactly what drives that innovation. This is what accelerates that business. When we talked about the acceleration at the beginning, this is how you're able to do it. By leveraging these basically tools, all these different services that we offer in Azure, you can experiment and drive that innovation. So you can see we've got tools, for example, I mentioned data a lot already, but there's a lot of tools to sort of help with IoT for streaming telemetry from, and this is very important for manufacturing, for example, where you now have a lot of different sensors on the production lines, and you're able to send that telemetry into Azure, into through streaming services, combine that with SAP data, and do some analysis on it. Have predictive models to figure out when a production line might actually require maintenance even before it requires maintenance. And through those sort of methods, you're able to optimize your production and your manufacturing capabilities better than you could before. And this is why I said this is my favorite topic, because this is where you really see technology driving innovation and improvement. So reiterating again a little bit that example of combining the data from various sources, and we see a lot of our customers really do this once they've moved their SAP landscape to Azure. And we've had some customers who've actually leveraged this even with their SAP landscape on-premise, which is again bringing the data from multiple sources, including SAP, as well as IoT, as well as logistics, other sort of SaaS software solutions, and bring it all in one place in Azure, where it's really a lot easier to sort of analyze and come up with predictive models, and then again re-leverage those and use them in real-time predictive sort of situations. So when we think beyond, Azure as well, Microsoft obviously has a very large stack now. It's so large that, it's even sometimes difficult for me to keep track of all of it. But what you see now is, I mentioned the security. So we're adding a lot of value to SAP landscape with the security sort of perspective. We're starting to add value now with Microsoft Teams and sort of trying to merge, what's happening in the core of the SAP system with collaboration tools like Teams, right? So you probably heard the announcement at Ignite. This is something that's still sort of a work in progress, but that's something that will be very big, I think, this year. We're going to be combining Microsoft Teams with SAP solutions. We've got logic apps for being able to very easily create integration between SAP and other systems, again, without any code. So again, another layer of tools and services that you can enrich your SAP landscape with. Power BI, Data Factory, the data streaming, IoT, I basically already mentioned those, but you can see that it's a lot more than just about the infrastructure. It's about adding value with these surrounding services. The final one I would mention is the Power Platform, because it doesn't really sit within Azure, and it doesn't really sit with, sort of like modern workplace and Teams and so forth, which is also becoming rapidly popular and extending SAP with these sort of tools. So you're able to, for example, create a really simple mobile app using Power Apps without writing any code, and you've got connectors that connect into SAP, pull out some data or send some data through. So for example, if you want to have an approval process outside of SAP based on some sort of, also conditions, you can build that really easy and rapidly in Power Apps. Power Automate, again, you can sort of set up really quick integration processes or automated processes that sit outside of SAP. And you can do these quite rapidly. And again, they're all codeless, right? It's drag and drop, really simple interfaces. Power BI, very popular product, is to kind of combine data from SAP and other sort of sources and display it in a nice fashion. And finally, virtual agents. This is becoming very popular for chatbots with SAP. So, for example, we have customers who are querying what is the status of my invoice, and they're able to do it through Teams. And this virtual agent is able to actually query SAP and return back the status of that invoice or of that order. So again, it's about leveraging the platform as a toolbox to build and innovate your existing business. So to sort of wrap that third pillar up, a quick example of one of our key customers is Daimler. Daimler went through this sort of journey. They started by migrating S/4HANA to Azure, and they did exactly as I described at the beginning. They started leveraging those data services and analytics. They started analyzing all the data that they had in SAP and try to draw insights out of it. And from those insights, they went back and sort of updated their SAP processes and SAP landscape. And they're using Azure as a complete sort of development and innovation platform, right? They're using it to build applications and new products for their customers that might not even have anything to do with SAP, right? So it's about really accelerating the innovation within an organization by using the platform, right, where everything is very interconnected. So that was the third pillar. The final pillar is our unique partnership with SAP. So when we think about the SAP and Microsoft relationship, it's something that's been going on for 30 years. We've been working closely together for that long. We are actually one of the biggest users of SAP. We have a huge SAP landscape, and it runs in Azure, right? And SAP also uses Azure for some of their internal landscape. So you can see we're using one another's product. Now, why is this useful for you? Well, this is useful for you because we have, through that process, found a lot of ways to come up with reference architectures and best practices for running SAP in Azure and in the cloud, right? And we actually have engineers who work together on a common roadmap and common products for both, how to run SAP in the cloud and for how SAP should work on Azure. So you can see how, those two working in tandem is a huge benefit for our customers and also for the future. You can see how it's strategic that this is something that's going to be going on also into the future. Finally, when we're talking about the S/4HANA acceleration, we actually have go-to-market strategies where we're really trying to find partners like Scalefocus to really accelerate the adoption of S/4HANA. And we have programs and incentives in place, such as proof of concepts, which we run for 90 days completely for free, where you can try S/4HANA in the cloud. So we have initiatives like that where we worked very closely with SAP and other partners to really help drive and accelerate that adoption of S/4HANA. So to sort of wrap up, getting close to the end, I just wanted to sort of share what the 4 key drivers are of our customers when they're thinking about adopting their SAP landscape to the cloud. First one is infrastructure events. So, our customers are at the end of their, the hardware cycle and their hardware is end of life, and they're looking for, ways to sort of, where should they go? And, they don't want to go and make a massive investment again. So they look for alternatives, and they realize that they can actually deploy their SAP landscape in a few hours or in a few weeks for a whole project, right? In Azure, right? And they don't even have to worry about the hardware coming to either their own on-premise data center and configuring and setting it up. They know that they can actually do this extremely quickly and rapidly. And again, here's that acceleration in the cloud and in Azure. The second group of customers are concerned with operational efficiency. They're looking for leveraging the log analytics and the security tools that we have in Azure and trying to optimize how their SAP landscape runs, right? They're trying to minimize cost. They're trying to improve efficiency. They're trying to reduce the headcount that's trying to manage that landscape so they can use that headcount for more important things. The third group of people, like I mentioned in the previous slide, are the ones who are thinking how to get to S/4HANA the easiest way, the quickest way, the safest way, and the lowest risk way. And they realize because of our partnership with SAP and our reference architectures, our experience, that they trust us, that they know that with us, it will be a lot easier to do. And because we also have those programs in place to really try it out, right? Like I said, you could try S/4HANA for 90 days for free with us. So again, this is a third group of customers which are really thinking about S/4HANA in Azure. The final one is, again, my favorite one. It's the customers who are looking for more. They're looking for ways to, innovate, to add IoT to their manufacturing lines, for example, to add sensors, to, add business intelligence and so forth. They're looking for ways to innovate, drive better customer experiences, and drive, improve operational efficiency. And they realize that this is a lot easier to do with Azure because Azure provides all those different platform services that I talked about to help sort of drive that innovation. And a lot of it is free to experiment with. Again, experimentation is how you drive that innovation and are able to do it really quickly. So those are the 4, I guess, key drivers for our customers thinking about or utilizing their SAP landscapes in the cloud. So just a quick view of some of the customers that we currently have in running their SAP workloads in the cloud. Some big names up there, Shell, Chevron, and in all various different industries. I think more relevant for our region, and I like to show this slide, is some of the successes we've had in CEE. So you can see, maybe for some of you household names, Podravka, I know I have in the kitchen. So Zentiva is a huge Czech pharmaceutical manufacturer with also some offices in Romania. So you can see a lot of companies in the region are also realizing the benefits of S/4HANA running in Azure. And we're hoping and looking forward to seeing this list grow. And we're hoping that Scalefocus and the people on this call are join us on this journey. So this is my final slide. I just sort of want to wrap up with what a successful journey should ideally look like. So it all begins with discovery. It begins with understanding where you're at the moment and trying to actually realize what are your goals as a business. Is it to improve that efficiency? Is it to get to S/4HANA and realize those benefits that Dimitri talked about? what are your goals? Because if you sort of start moving somewhere without understanding why you're going there, it's probably not going to be a good result. So that's the first bit. And our partners like Scalefocus actually really help drive that. They do solution assessments, and they really discuss the goals with with our customers and try and come up with a plan, right? And the plan is where we should, what the future state should look like, what the architecture should look like, how are we actually going to get to and realize those goals that we sort of define in the discover phase. The middle phase is actually where the work gets done, where you actually realize the migration. Again, we have a lot of experience in doing this. So we're basically repeating things we've done again, and we just sort of keep optimizing it each time. So it's something that when you think about S/4HANA migrating to the cloud, it's something that you can trust Microsoft, SAP, and a partner to sort of do. Finally, once you're actually migrated or you're running your greenfield S/4HANA in the cloud, you're thinking about how to optimize it, how to improve your operational efficiency. You're thinking about whether you should maybe reduce some of those virtual machines to reduce your costs. You're thinking about do the dev and test environments need to be running all the time? Can I save some costs? So you're looking at how to optimize your landscape. And finally, once all that's done, you really want to start thinking about the innovation piece, right? Like I said, my favorite piece. How can you maybe improve your manufacturing process further, or how can you improve the customer experience by maybe making some data available about when their product will arrive, available to them sooner? You start thinking about how to improve your business, which comes in that sort of fifth pillar. So this is the journey we like to see our customers go on, and I really hope that this is a journey that you guys go on, and sort of accelerate your business. You're able to adapt and be a more agile going forward with this sort of method and this sort of journey. So I really hope that was useful for you guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and that's it from me. So Pavan.
Thank you very much, Andre. So before we move to I would say the final part, the do's and don'ts of the business digitalization, which I think it can refer not only to SAP, but to any type of digital initiatives you as a company are undertaking. I would like to do a recap of the recap of the recap. So, to put it shortly, S/4HANA is primarily the main choice for manufacturers because it's a very innovative solution, and I would say not even a solution, but a platform. It runs an in-memory database, which means you can get all the business insight real life. Secondly, it has an unparalleled manufacturing, planning, and execution capabilities, which I think through all the people attending from the webinar who are part of manufacturing organization, this is one of the key topics. Next but not least, we already seen through Ariete and the story of Bogdan that with the right planning and with the right execution, with the right partner and technology, every project can be a success. And that S/4HANA in general is not solving, as a platform, all the problems manufacturers face, with the COVID or with any such turbulences, but it really helps facilitate innovation, adaptation, and improve efficiency. And last but not least, before moving to the slides, Microsoft Azure, in terms of deployment option, is one of the best options available if you want to really, let's say, improve efficiency of the system, how they run, to ensure that they are secure, and to ensure adoption of the whole S/4HANA system. So this being said, I will actually move to the last slide. I don't know, Andre, if you'd like to cover some of the points, just let me know. Otherwise, I would have the honors of doing it. So before we do that, I would just want to point out one major thing to all the companies who are thinking of either, let's say, first-time deployment of SAP, or they want to migrate from a SAP ECC 6.0. So any such projects that involve the business system implementation, it's you won't do it with I would say the magic wand. It's not something that you bring the vendor and let's say he does all the work and you just sit back in the chair and relax and all the stuff gets done. No, on the contrary, this is a mutual project that is essentially a partnership between the vendor, in terms, let's say in this case, let's say Scalefocus or another SAP implementation vendor, you as a business, and of course, the solution you have chosen. So without this understanding that you also need to dedicate time, you need to dedicate effort to actually think how you're going to do this. So what do you want to change? You can never have a successful project. So you might have a successful deployment of a system, but this essentially won't be a successful project. So this being said, I would like to highlight some do's and don'ts of business digitalization. So this is just, I would say, the peak of the iceberg. There are probably another 10, but I think these are the pinnacle in terms of, if you follow at least these, the chances to have a successful projects are, let's say, very, very, very high. So Andre, if you want, you can cover, let's say, the first 2 or 3, and I can
sure. So
go on the rest. Otherwise, I'll just
Sure, I'm happy to, and I'll just add a sentence or two to each one if you like. But the first one, we talk about the most successful programs are business led. Let's keep in mind that a SAP sort of project is primarily a business transformation or a business project. When we think about S/4HANA migrations, we may think that it's a purely technology-driven thing, and that's probably, I think, the wrong approach, right? Because you want to always be focusing on what's the business outcomes, what's the ROI, what's the goal, what is the benefit, why am I actually doing this? And the executive needs to get behind that and believe that. And that's what, to have a successful project, that's why you need to have the executive team sort of be behind it and understand that it's actually a business initiative, not a technology initiative. The technology sort of enables that business outcome.
Okay, so you covered the first. Next is, I'll cover the implement change management. I think change management, it's something not so familiar in, let's say, our geography, and by our geography, I mean CE. So people by nature are resistant to change. So they want to keep doing what they have been doing in the last 3, 4, 5, or 6 years, and it's very difficult to, to change them. So you need to have, let's say, a change management program or a person who is preaching, on the shop floor, on the different levels of organization, that why we are doing this or you are doing this and how it will benefit it, and implement change management process in order to make sure that this essentially transformation of the organization will be successful. So this is really a must, and I see a lot of organizations struggle with that. The next is because this essentially is an integrated system. So you have different departments. You have from the warehouse to the actual shop floor where the manufacturing is done, to finance, to controlling. So you have different business units working as a team, which means that essentially you need to facilitate a collaborative environment for all those business units to, let's say, to be in sync, and to know that, the decision you make on how to, let's say, you're gonna do the manufacturing planning is gonna affect all the other units. So this is also a must. Andre, if you want, you can take the benefits management and value delivery.
Sure. So look, this is very similar to the first point, right? You got to remember why you're doing this project. It's about realizing the benefits, and you want to be thinking with that mindset right from the day one, and making sure you're managing scope to that, right? There's obviously scope changes within every project. That's sort of natural, but ensuring that you have the benefits as the sort of the business value that you're trying to derive as your North Star that you're sort of guiding by is something that you want to have from day one. So I guess that's what I'd add to that.
Okay, thank you. And the last 3, I'll just summarize in just a few sentences, and we move on. We have one question that we need to answer in the remaining time. So data migration is very important. So if you probably have legacy systems. I think you need to plan what data and in what format, together with the partner, need to be migrated to the new system. This is a topic where a lot of projects struggle, and by project I mean both the vendor and the end client, because they think that this is the least important and topic, or one of the less important topics. But actually, this is one of the pillars of a successful project, because if you don't have the right master data in the right format to be migrated to the system, in the end you would have just a hollow egg. In the end, you won't be able to run successfully your system. So you definitely need to, let's say, to have a governance program. And the last, I think, and the one of the most important things is you need to nominate the champions within your organization, which will facilitate change, which will be in charge of taking decisions in terms of how a business process will be implemented. Because essentially, by implementing such a system, this is, I think, the best time to make the aching changes that probably have been thinking of making in the last 3 or 5 years, but there's always something which is more important. And with that, I would like to let's say to finish this this part of the webinar and move to the questions. We have one question. Actually, we have 2 questions from anonymous attendees. So the first question, you can probably read it. It's about how does S/4HANA help with human capital management? Now, this is actually a very good question. And human capital management, you know, it's a science by itself. So it's something that that cannot be taken lightly. So if you really want to enforce a good human capital management, this most likely won't be in the ERP, in the standard ERP system. So companies or vendors who are saying, yeah, we have the perfect HCM, so in the ERP, it's out of the box, chances are this will have a limited functionality. So if from the SAP perspective, they have a completely separate solutions, which is called SAP SuccessFactors, which is entirely cloud-based, and it covers everything in terms of human capital management, from the initial onboarding, recruiting, performance evaluation, employee development, succession planning, and so on and so on. So this runs as a separate solution. So SAP has, like S/4HANA, limited HCM functionalities, which will help you manage some employee data, so manage some users at some, I would say, simplified information, but not a full-blown HCM. I hope that answered the question fully. And the second one is S/4HANA capable of managing innovative potential, allowing you to simulate an enterprise different variation in modeling and development of new high-tech products? Actually, there are several aspects to this. So in S/4HANA, and maybe I think Dimitri as a consultant knows much more than me, you have a separate module which is called project system, where you can, let's say, create projects and manage them, and you know, like what people are involved, what expenses, the cost, etc., and manage it as a project. But if you want to simulate what if scenarios, you would actually have a whole separate add-on, which is called SAP Analytics Cloud Advanced Planning, when you can simulate how different changes within your business model or within certain business KPIs might affect the whole organization. So definitely, you know, modeling and development of new high-tech products, it is embedded in the standard S/4HANA, but it can be further extended if you want to do a what-if analysis in terms of, okay, you release this innovative product, you expect this amount of sales. So what will be the impact in different markets depending on the sales? But for actually managing it, so developing the innovation, no, you can manage it entirely through S/4HANA. And last, the third and last question which I see is, you say SAP S/4HANA is a business strategy. So my question is, what is the business model that is the core of S/4HANA, and does that model explain the principal structure of the enterprise? So you have different types of manufacturers, you have different types of industries. So the good thing, you know, with S/4HANA, you have first separate instances which are called SAP model companies. It can be, let's say, for chemicals, it can be for even for subsectors of the manufacturing. It works in a bit more limited way. Then you have all out of the box processes ready, set up. So it's like plug and play. So it's harder than what it is actually, but essentially it's literally, that's why it's called a model company. And if you want to take a more generic approach, you have the so-called business best practices. So basically, essentially 90%, as Bogdan said in his part, of the businesses are the same. So SAP provides the whole framework around which you can model your business, your core, even part of your business model. But the actual SAP won't tell you if you do this, you'll be successful. No, this needs to come from the business stakeholders, but SAP can empower, enable, and facilitate this, let's say, new business model adoption. That's what I said as SAP as a business strategy. So long story short, yes, SAP can help you explain and, let's say, focus on how a good working enterprise should be structured in terms of departments, but not only SAP, but we as a partner and our business consultants who are focused also on certain business areas such as finance controlling, from their experience by implementing in a lot of other companies, they can tell you what they have seen and they can advise you how you can model your business, from their perspective. You can always agree or disagree, accept or discard their suggestion. So I hope that managed that answered your question. Okay. Second one is, so the fourth question is, does the system allows effective re-engineering in motion? Actually, to be honest, if you can elaborate more what effective re-engineering in motion means, because at the moment it's, I can stipulate in a lot of different directions for these questions, or maybe Dimitri has something in mind that he can answer.
Yeah, in this case, it really will be helpful to clarify what is re-engineering means, because every single project in consulting started not from realization. It started from blueprinting. During this blueprint, you are trying to fit all business requirements, and right after that, you start to implement the solution and start the realization phase. So at the end of every project, we have a different approach, like a traditional waterfall, but also agile approach, which is called SAP Activate, and it allows to be flexible during the implementation and meet all the expectations in the end of the project. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also add, like, especially the SAP Activate. So the old school approaches, so some consultants come to your company, they take, all the notes, they write the blueprint, you just sign it off, and you see each other after 6 to 9 months, and then you said, oh, this is not exactly what I imagined.
Definitely.
So this is, I would say, the old approach. So the new approach with the SAP Activate, this is an agile approach. You have a lot of iterations and different touch points to validate that, the initial requirements are actually, what you as a customer want, and we can make adjustments, if that's what you mean by re-engineering, throughout the implementation process. Okay, since I don't see any more questions, I can call this a wrap. It's exactly 4:29 local time. So first of all, I would like to thank Bogdan, Andre, and Dimitri for their participation. It was a pleasure having them. I hope we can have more such events, maybe on other topics, to really educate the public. I would also like to thank all the people who attended, who took the time in this Wednesday afternoon to listen to what we have to say. So as a follow-up, all of you will receive, let's say, the link to the recording of today's session, plus all the presentation materials. We'll be happy to take on the conversation from here and discuss how we can help your business adapt and accelerate your business growth through S/4HANA with the help of SAP and Microsoft, and of course, us as a sole implementation partner. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, and bye.